son. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Producer. Landon Fraker tonight, doing the producing force over here behind the keyboard. Got us all going here. So we're going to be bringing you tonight this special edition of the Marshfield Old School Times. It's a special Sunday evening edition. And we'll see how this goes. We might like some Sunday evening editions just to mix it up a little bit. So we have Reverend Nicholas Inman, the Chief Cherry Fester. Did you like that?
Yeah, that's the first time I've been called that.
Kind of like the chief of the Indian tribe, the
go.
Native American tribe or whatever. Chief Cherry Fester.
Yep.
Well, welcome, Nicholas.
Good to be back.
We're here. It's hard to believe it's been a year since we were here and since we were going into this week, which is in your life probably maybe the biggest week of the year, I would assume.
Yep.
And I know you've told me that once this week is over, next week you'll probably begin working on next year's.
That's right. Always working 4 years ahead.
4 years. No kidding.
Yep.
Wow. Well, the 2026 Cherry Blossom Festival is lining up to be the biggest ever, the 21st annual. And you've went from a program like this to a program like this because you got so much stuff it wouldn't fit on the other size page.
It's getting so small I can't read it anymore.
Well, that's true. You may have to get like a map size.
Right.
But my goodness, you've got some names on the back of here that you've never had before. And I'll tell you, I see some names on here that pretty major stars in their day and probably still are. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to start off tonight and let you know that one of your Cherry Blossom Festival volunteers, Lyndall Hudspeth, passed away this weekend, and Lionel and Diana were guests on my podcast on this show. Matter of fact, Lionel and then Ben Fraker, my cousin, was on the show once, and I think those are the only two guests that I've had that have passed. And I wanted to mention Lionel and keep Diana in your prayers. Yeah. And he was just a great guy, and I know he was getting ready to participate, I think.
Yeah, so Diana's on the alumni committee, and so she's very active and has a couple of different roles during festival time. But Lionel was so excited about the Oakland A's program, and Diana was just mentioning how he'd pulled out some pictures he was going to show the moderator, and so Lionel's loss is a great loss to Marshfield.
Absolutely, and he played minor league baseball, right?
Oh, I could be.
I think that's right. I know he played. Yeah, he was
he was a lot of fun.
Very, very good baseball player in his day, if I understand. So
he loves sports. I know that.
Yeah. So, anyway, and then the other thing I wanted to mention was today's Ministerial Alliance Church service. Wonderful service, 2:00 over at the Baptist Church. General John Ashcroft gave the message, and what a true American patriot, huh?
Yes, as they were reading his introduction, my wife leaned over to me and said, "What have you done?" I felt kind of small compared to everything he's done in life. He's been accomplished.
Yeah, he really is, and the service was very unique, basically full of music, and your choir and General Ashcroft was led. You might say the congregational singing hymns, and it was really neat, and so well attended.
And Lyndall received the Cherry Blossom Medal along with D. Lewis.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up.
Well, you did.
Yeah, but it was an honor, and it was great to be there, and I appreciate it very much. You also had a group of ladies there, or not ladies, a group of ladies and gentlemen that were kind of special, right?
Yeah.
And
so
did you get the picture made?
We did.
Okay.
So during the sesquicentennial, we gathered those who were senior in our county to be our historical advisory committee, those that maybe couldn't serve in other capacities, but who were the keepers of the history of our county. So since those individuals have all passed away, now that we're looking at the nation's 250th, we wanted to do the same thing.
Right.
And so we gathered them for a photograph today. That was pretty neat. Yeah.
And were they all over 90 years old?
A couple of them are getting ready to turn 90.
Yes.
But they are all very senior members of the county.
Right.
Some of them approaching 100. And in fact, Betty Herman didn't get to stay for the picture, but just turned 100, and she was there.
And she was there.
And they took a picture of her by herself.
Okay.
so that it could be incorporated. She couldn't stay the whole
Right,
time.
right. That's cool. How many did you think you had of the picture?
Well, I didn't count them, but there was a good number of them, and they were from all over the county. And like Rachel Straw was there, and she's getting ready to turn 100. She's from Rogersville, the Rogersville area, and Helen Lamb from Seymour, and your Uncle Donald and Aunt Leona,
Yes.
who are Leona's 95. I think Donald's getting ready to turn 95.
No, they're both.
Well,
I'm not sure. They're both the same age,
Yeah.
just a few days apart. But the birthday's in this time of the year, so you may be right on that.
yeah. So it was kind of neat to see them all together,
Right,
you know.
And I think Pat Abbott had been there and had.
I don't know if she stayed for the picture, but she was in the
I don't
service
think she
today.
did. She was there, and she would have. But I think needed to go on for some reason. She rode with the other with Sally or something. But yeah, she's obviously 100 this year. So
There was probably well over 300 years or 400 years of experience in the picture today. Yeah.
And I've talked, and we know that Pat and Betty Herman and Mitzi Hosmer are all going to be.
Yes.
Is that a centurion? What do you call that?
Yeah.
Centurion.
Right. Mitzi Hosmer is 100.
Yeah.
Betty Herman's now 100. Mitzi Hosmer's attending the alumni luncheon this year.
Is she? Mm-hmm. And of course, they all were business people, Marshfield community, members of clubs. I mean, very, very active in this community for their whole lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that's really cool.
Are still, Pat Abbott's still very vibrant and active in our community.
Goes to church every Sunday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Betty Herman, until recent years, belonged to half the clubs in town.
And they had a big birthday party for her.
They did, yes, on Saturday.
Yeah.
My daughter Reagan and I attended.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, that's neat. It's really neat that you get them together and we honor them, and that's what it's all about, and that's kind of what this show's about. It's preserving and honoring history and honoring those that went before us and keeping their memories alive and that type of thing. So it's all very fitting with this week's Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival, the eclectic week of I call it a potpourri of pop culture, presidential descendants, and community celebration.
Yep,
honoring our community to do all of that. So let's start just a little bit. First of all, this is the 21st, and in general, if you were going to give an overview of the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival, let's say nobody's ever seen this show and they really don't know what it is. How would you start that conversation and compare this year's to previous and how it started, and just give us a 5-minute history lesson on the festival?
The best way to describe the festival, I think, is to say it's like you put history in a blender and it blows up for 3 days. Because the mission of the festival is to preserve local, state, and national history. Mm-hmm. And so you see panels and speakers about all of those topics. And it's very diverse. Your history means a lot of things. It can be pop culture, which is a huge part of our culture and our history. Right. It can be a panel of descendants of the founding fathers, as we're doing the nation's 250th this year, where that's something that's being prominently featured this year. It could be our alumni luncheon, which features our local history. It's a whole hodgepodge of things that are thrown into the same weekend. Right. And it's a good way to learn your history. Not everybody had a great experience learning history in high school, and so this is a good way to learn it from primary sources and bring it to life.
Absolutely. And, I was thinking, we were talking before the show as well about, even the Civil War. And if you really think about it, my grandfather's grandfather fought in the Civil War. And, of course, I knew my grandfather quite well. He passed when I was 12, but knew him very well. And so, not that he did, but he could have told direct stories that his grandfather could have told him about the war. And I'm sitting here thinking, I have grandsons, and I could be telling my grandsons stories of growing up in the 60s and the 70s in Marshfield, Missouri, and then they could relay that to their grandsons. It would be the same time frame, the same element.
Yep.
And if you really get to thinking about that, we're a lot closer to those former generations than we think.
We're not that old of a country.
No, we're not.
When you really think of it, and we were talking about Diana Hudspeth, and you and I were visiting earlier. Her grandfather fought in the Civil War.
Her grandfather.
He was a bugler at Wilson's Creek, and he was the last Civil War veteran. His name was George Lawson from Fordland. He was the last Civil War veteran to be alive in Webster County. Yeah. And, that's not that far removed.
Not that far removed. Yeah. And, of course, Helen Jackson, the story.
Yes,
we all know that story.
Yeah.
You've published that story in the past, and being the last Civil War veteran's widow in the nation, I suppose, best you could tell. So there is a lot of interesting connections that Missouri Cherry Blossom Week, brings out, and sort of it's kind of an expose in some of these things.
Until last year, Bill Poole attended the festival from Bolivar, and Bill Poole was a World War II veteran, but his father fought in the Civil War, and he's the last son of a Union veteran that is known to be alive in the country.
Really?
And so to think that your father fought in the Civil War, you fought in the Second World War, that's pretty amazing.
Right, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Huh.
He's in Bolivar in the nursing home, but
is he 100 yet?
Probably pretty close to it. Yeah.
We need to keep these people's memories alive in any way we can, and that's something that's very important to me. Whether it's just our own family members, I've got memorabilia that it's been passed down, pictures, grandparents, great grandparents, parents, and to be able to preserve that and share that with future generations is very, very important. At least it is to me, and that's one thing that you're definitely doing. The other thing I wanted to make note about the festival too, I was thinking about it today, is the festival. It's taken on a life of its own. Certainly when you started and you were, your first year or two, and you had a few people and childhood pop star, and you may remember some of those original. Lulu, was she one of them? Lulu Roman?
Betty Lynn was one of them.
Betty Lynn, which is Thelma Lou, would have been one, and then Grover Cleveland's grandson came in those early days. I mean, and so people are like, what's the deal? What's the connection? How does this connect to Marshfield? And there was a lot of that. And it's like, well, now the festival itself has become the phenomenon. Not those things that started it that really were disconnected, but now the fact that you bring all that different stuff, like you said, and put it in a blender, and now that is the uniqueness of it.
Yep.
The pop culture, presidential descendants, and celebration of community. And so it's just really cool.
George Cleveland said on his way home from the first festival, he was seated on the airplane next to a lady. She said, "Where have you been?" He said, "I've been in Marshfield, Missouri." She said, "Where's that?" And he said, "Well, it's in the middle of nowhere." "Well, why were you there?" Because he lives in Tamworth, New Hampshire. "Why were you there?" He said, "Well, how do you explain to somebody that you're the grandson of Grover Cleveland and you've just spent the weekend with the Munchkin from The Wizard of Oz and Thelma Lou from the Andy Griffith Show?" It's kind of hard to piece all that together.
And then the one picture that I have somewhere, and I haven't located, I need to find it, but of Ellie Mae Clampett, Thelma Lou, Charlene Darlin, and who was the third one in that picture? I don't think it was Thelma Lou, but I got to find that picture because there's three of them in that picture. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the week. Today was the kickoff with the church service. Went really well. Great way to kick things off. Very evangelical service. Very honoring Jesus Christ and our Lord and Savior and God, and the whole church scene was great, and it was great to see all denominations come together and sing those hymns. And really good.
When you look at all of the different churches in town, a good portion of the denominations were represented, from the Baptist to the Methodist, the Nazarene, the Mormon Church, the Catholic Church.
That's right.
The Church of Christ. It's very rare that we all come together. Yes, it's very rare we all come together, and that was really, really nice.
It was. Battle Hymn of the Republic was a song sang midway in the service, and that, I have to admit, I teared up a little in that song. Really, and the acoustics were good in there too.
That's become the tradition of the services to sing that each year.
Yeah. So then you have we take Monday kind of to get everything going, and then Tuesday will be your first event.
Yes,
right here in the community center from 7 to 9.
Yeah,
Cherry Blossom Square Dance.
Yep, and that's a connection to our local history. Square dance clubs used to be very prominent here, all over the Ozarks, and so that's become a very popular thing.
Absolutely. Plus, your grandma wants to square dance.
Oh, absolutely. That's right.
You got to do something for grandma.
That's right.
And so then the next day would be Wednesday, which is still sort of pre-festival in all day festivities, but you do have an event or two on Wednesday, don't you?
Yes, and let me mention this. This is not something that makes the festival schedule.
Right.
But part of the festival's mission is education.
Right.
So on Wednesday, we have the Living History Museum in the yard of the Dickey House. And we have, I think, 6 to 8 famous Missourians that are portrayed, from Harry Truman to Edwin
Oh,
Hubble
yeah.
to George Washington Carver. And the third graders come, and we'll probably put through 400 or 500 third graders, and they go from station to station and learn about famous Missourians. And that's become, this is maybe the third or fourth year that we've done that, and that's a very popular thing because part of the third grade curriculum is learning about famous Missourians.
Right.
And of course, with the Walk of Fame, that's a big deal.
Right.
So, and then also on Wednesday at noon is the Colonel Luncheon, the Cherry Blossom Colonels,
Right.
which are 100 influential Missourians that were chosen last year for the festival's 20th anniversary as a way to honor the state's history and to gather them all together. And we're working on preserving all of their oral histories and to give to the university. And that's kind of fun that they've all coming to Marshfield from across the state for the
Right.
second year for lunch, and they really look forward to that.
Right. You have that over at the
Jackson Event Center,
Jackson
yeah.
Grill, Jackson Event Center.
So those things are happening during the day, and
Right.
they're not necessarily on the festival schedule, but
Right.
those are big events on Wednesday.
Right. The third grade. When do you do the living thing?
It's on Wednesday morning.
In the morning. Okay. Yeah. Third graders come in from
Yeah.
school, and then at 2:00 Wednesday we have something else going on in
That's
town.
right. So, and you go ahead and tell that.
Well, most of you have seen the this logo, Webster County Centennial Celebration, and it's the 100th year anniversary of Route 66. It's also this year, of course, our 250th birthday of America, and we're going to have a special celebration at the little gas station down by the roundabout, the old We Dug In location in across from Simmons Bank. We're going to
Cut a ribbon and dedicate it. It's going to really be exciting.
dedicate the gas station building.
Yeah.
So it's something we've been working on for well over a year now, and it's all coming together. We probably won't have it quite done. Weather and the other factors as far as having all the concrete poured for the driving and drive up and all that. But the building basically is done, and we'll be finishing up details in the coming weeks, the short coming weeks, so we have it ready for the summer tourist season. And but we wanted to have that ribbon cutting this week in conjunction with the Cherry Blossom Festival, and then next week is the actual kickoff of Route 66 celebration in Springfield, Missouri. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the 30th, and May 1st and May 2nd will be the big event up there. Concert. There's a dance on Saturday night called the Telegraph Ball. There's car shows. There's all kinds of things going on in that 3-day weekend celebration. I think they're going to dedicate the park that they're designing up there in the location of the old Kentwood Arms Hotel, where the first phone call or telegraph was actually sent telling Springfield, Missouri that they were going to be the Route 66 was going to be named Route 66, because there was a question about what they would call it and name it, and the Springfield lobby wanted that. So anyway, that's going to be a fun weekend, and so we're going to have our tour stop also. We're calling this the Route 66 tour stop here in Marshfield.
And I know you agree with this. Our community should be proud of that.
Yeah.
A lot of work has gone into it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a wonderful draw for tourism, especially Route 66 tourism. That historic building, if you ever drove by it, you'd hear people say all the time, it'd really be nice if that was saved.
Right.
And that's what's happened.
Yeah.
And it's been a great collaborative effort between a lot of entities.
It has, and it was not going to be saved. That's
right.
why we were allowed the opportunity to get the building. It was donated by the Dill family.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly recognize them for that. But in order to preserve it, we had to get it on property here in town where we could keep an eye on it. Plus, it had to be on public property for long-term maintenance and upkeep. So it'll be on city property, and the city and the county have been both very, very helpful in the restoration of the project.
And I know you've heard these discussions as well, but as we've been going through the process of the restoration, to be looking at the shingles and the colors and all those things.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of, I don't think people often realize all the work that goes in behind the scenes to choose those colors, to look at pumps that are as authentic as they can be. So, a lot of work has gone in to make that as authentic as possible.
we got a grant. The money was going to go somewhere, and we were fortunate to get it here in Webster County. So we're proud of that project,
Absolutely.
and it'll be totally completed here in the next few weeks. But we are going to cut the ribbon this Wednesday. So.
And then that same day at 4 o'clock, Webco Manor for several years has hosted a hat parade.
Oh.
And the residents make their own hats.
Yeah.
And they have their own little parade. And we have judges go out for that. And
Right.
it's fun to watch them get to participate as well.
It is, absolutely. And then Thursday would be the next, the official 3-day event. Let's talk about Thursday.
Well, there's all kinds of panels on Thursday at the Assembly of God and speakers, etc. Something I want to emphasize, and this is not on the public schedule, but the Cherry Blossom Auxiliary hosts a breakfast every year on Thursday morning it's called the Teachers Breakfast. It's free for all the teachers to attend, retired or current teachers, because we feel like the whole festival focuses on history and education, so we feel like it's a good way to really begin the official days, and it's a great reunion for them. And I've always said if I hadn't had good teachers, we would never have had a Cherry Blossom Festival. And so it's a lot of fun to see the teachers honored to kind of officially begin that. Carolyn Grimes from It's a Wonderful Life, the movie's getting ready to have its 80th anniversary. She's speaking about that. She, of course, is a Missouri resident for many
and
years.
that's Zuzu.
Zuzu, yeah, that's right. And, of course, she's the honorary chair of Zuzu's house here. So that's kind of a fun way to start that day. And then we have a whole whole day. But the Cherry Blossom Tea is that day, and that is a huge event. And this is the second year that we've had local hosts. So local ladies here in the community are hosting tables.
Oh.
So they each decorate their own table, and then the speaker gets to judge who the winner is.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was really neat to see what people came up with last year.
And that event's sold out.
It is sold out.
Okay.
And, that's something I might add. When you mentioned when we first started the festival, you would advertise an event and you would wait, tickets to sell, and you'd try to sell tickets to this person and that person. This year, tickets sold out for some of our events in hours, which is crazy.
And you always start that ticket sale
on President's Day. Yep.
February.
Yep.
So that's kind of the main event on Thursday, at least during the day. What else is going on? I know that you've got a concert.
Thursday night there are two events. And many of your viewers might be familiar with this. Sean of the South is a very famous columnist, and his name is Sean Dietrich. And he writes in papers all over the country, and he appears on the Grand Ole Opry. He's done a lot of different stuff. He's receiving a star on the Walk of Fame this year, and so he's having a concert on Thursday night. And then also on Thursday night, MCT has a production that they're putting on. It's actually Thursday, Friday, and maybe Saturday night, but we only have Thursday night listed on the schedule.
I see.
So there's something for everybody to choose from that you might like to see.
And Shaun of the South would be a ticket purchase.
Yes. And people can purchase tickets. I've been asked that. Can they purchase them at the door? Yes, you can.
Sure.
But that really is kind of an awesome thing that he's coming.
Sure. But if you see these pink folders around town, and I know you've got them scattered all around, you've got a QR code here that you can scan in order to get all the information, purchase the tickets, do all of that. In addition to I'm assuming your Facebook site, your website, all that information will be available probably through a QR code or whatever. So there's lots of ways to get the information and purchase what you want. What else Thursday? Did that kind of cover the main things? I know you've got lots of like you said, panels or
speakers, all kinds of speakers.
You've got the quilt trail.
The quilt show. Yes, and this
10 to 4.
For several years now we've had this quilt trail in different locations around town. You can go and see quilts featured and different stories about the quilts, and that's really a very popular event. And Masonic Lodge is kind of the starting point of that, because for many years the Eastern Star hosted the quilt show, and once the Eastern Star here disbanded, the festival absorbed that. But Ann Robinson started the quilt show, and so we kind of like to continue to have something there because that's its origin.
Sure. You've got enchilada dinner 11 to 1 out at the Assembly of God Church, and then you also have the Carolyn Grinnell luncheon, right?
Yeah. So the Walton fans have been coming to the festival for many years, and they used to have an international fan club, and the president of that group was Carolyn Grinnell, who was a strong festival supporter and came every year. So those fans continue to meet here and have this luncheon.
Okay.
And that's been popular gathering here.
Is it more for just them?
Well, anybody can
come,
yeah.
but they have their
But that's kind of the origin of where that group began.
Sure, that's at sunrise. And then you also are having another group, a family meeting this year for the first time.
Yeah, the Society of the Ingalls family, which is the relatives of Laura Ingalls Wilder. They've never been formalized as a group, and they're having their first meeting here at the depot.
Right.
And they're very excited about that. They're coming from all over the country.
What day is that?
That is on Thursday.
That's on Thursday as well, yeah.
Thursday. Their meeting is like at 10 o'clock and a mixer at 11, I believe, but that's a big deal if they're choosing to come here. And of course, we're not far from Mansfield, so they can visit events and things there that are associated with Mrs. Wilder and get to enjoy both things while they're here.
Sure. At 4 to 7 that evening, you've got the fish fry, the Vivian Stuver fish fry.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm often asked, how does the festival benefit Marshfield? You know, these people coming to town, what does that have to play? I don't think a lot of people realize the economic impact that the schedule has on a lot of organizations. The Vivian Stuber Memorial Library from Niangua has hosted that fish fry, and that's their only fundraising event for the year.
And it's actually at the Assembly of God, so they don't have to drive to Niangua.
Right.
But, yeah.
The fish fry started in Niangua and was later moved here to be part of our schedule. And so, you know, some of these organizations, that's their lifeline for the year. Like the Evelyn Hampton Garden Club has a plant sale on Saturday morning. That's their big fundraiser for the year.
Project Grad.
Project Grad is now in charge of the vendors, and you know there's over 100 vendors this year. And if that continues, Project Graduation could have that as a fundraiser every year.
Right.
So I hope that will work.
Right.
But the enchilada luncheon you mentioned, the Helen Jackson Ladies Circle is hosting that this year. The Ladies Circle from our church, and that'll be their big fundraiser. So there are many groups that benefit. Wilson's Creek hosts a luncheon that their foundation benefits from on Friday. And then behind the scenes, like the Boy Scouts help set up tables and move things, and different clubs from school are involved that receive donations for being helpful. So there's lots of groups that benefit from the success of the festival.
Absolutely.
Our local businesses, the caterers,
the hotel.
The hotel's
he
full.
sells out all week,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
It is an impact for sure. One more thing, and then we'll move on to Friday. But the legends of television and screen. Someone asked me away from my little circle here. I can't remember where it was at. An old acquaintance from Jeff City or something asked me about that. They were very interested in that, and I looked up the time for them because you have several former stars of these sitcoms like Joyce Bulifant from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, John Provost, that was Timmy and the Lassie that we watched growing up, Martha Nix Wade, who was one of the Waltons, David Harper, one of the Waltons, Ray Toller from Home Alone, Tammy Beulah from the Waltons, Tina Cole from My Three Sons, that was the wife of the older of Robbie.
She's been here several years.
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver, Jerry Mathers, which, you know, Leave It to Beaver. Jerry Mathers on behalf of Tony Dow. Okay, but Jerry Beaver, the Beaver's going to be here, all right? But they're all not just going to be in the gym with their, you know, signing autographs and books, but they're going to be doing something at. This looks like it's at the
Assembly of God,
Assembly of God,
and it's free. And sometimes I have to have a moment of where you kind of pinch yourself because when you've watched a lot of these people on television and you've gotten to know them over the years, sometimes you have to step back and think, this is happening in our town.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of unusual, and that people want to come here to see them, and to see them all on the stage together in one of our churches, which is just really kind of an awesome moment.
Well, and this is something that, I'll bring up, I've thought about it, and you're a little bit too young to remember when these shows were prime time, but even when they were on after school every day. You know, I can remember Lassie every day after school in the 60s. It was on television.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, other shows and stars that you've had. You know, you've had Thelma Lou from Mayberry or Dawn from Gilligan's Island and so forth. But what we're doing is we're reliving fantastic memories.
Well,
and these shows had a story. They had a moral story. So we learned from Andy Griffith's show. We learned from the Waltons. We learned good, heartwarming stories that helped us as children to mold us into what we would become. And I think that's a piece of us that we're just reconnecting with. It brings back good memories. and that's why it's popular. But like you said, to have them in Marshfield, Missouri,
Special.
it's very special.
And I'll add this. I don't remember if it's John Provost or Stan Livingston from My Three Sons that said to me last year, they get invited to lots of different things. And I've always thought, why do they want to come to Marshfield?
Right.
They said to me last year, it's appropriate you have this autograph show at an old school.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we get together, we all grew up together as actors. We went to school together, and this is like
in Hollywood.
this is a reunion for us as well.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're having a reunion in your school gym that's become our reunion place.
They're having Reunion Fester.
They are, right.
We have Reunion Fest, and they're having Reunion Fester.
And it's funny that they feel that way, and that it's in the same setting where we would have our reunion.
Exactly.
But it's where we would have gone to school in the 50s,
Right.
when a lot of them were featured on television. It's a 50s and 60s, it's in a perfect setting
Right.
for that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun.
It is fun.
And it's fun to see pictures of them when they're getting together outside of the public events. Like, I saw a picture of a bunch of them, whole table of them, at Sheila's last year having lunch.
Yeah.
And, most people in the restaurant probably didn't know who all those people were, but they were having lunch
Oh,
at
I'd
the
say
town
some
square,
did. Yeah, I'd say some
Kind of
did.
exciting.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Friday, and you're
Yeah.
calling that Family Day. The Thursday was Founders Day. Friday is Family Day. So talk about Family Day.
Well, we always like to emphasize that there's something for everybody on the festival schedule, and we encourage families to come. So, the autograph show is designed the way that it is so that if you have 1 kid, 5 kids, whatever your income is, you can come into the autograph show. You do not have to pay an admittance fee. You can purchase something if you want to from one of the stars, but you can come and talk to Timmy from Lassie or
Right.
whomever without having to pay a dime to have a conversation
Right.
with them.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called Family Day, because that is the autograph show's kickoff. And all these things are accessible, most of them, unless they're a meal or a performance.
Right.
You can go for free and bring your family. And a lot of homeschool families like to do that as an educational portion of what they're teaching.
Right.
And so we really encourage people to bring their families.
Sure. But even the meals, they're reasonable. The fish fry is
Yes.
$12. Well, that's what the Catholic Church
Absolutely.
gets for theirs is $12, and,
Yeah.
and it's a value. So, what else you have on Friday? You've got
We have the cherry pie contest is on Friday, and that's a big fundraiser for the festival. There's only like 2 or 3 things on the actual festival schedule that are actually fundraising things for the festival
Right.
itself. Everything else benefits somebody else. But we have a contest each year of the cherry pies, and then we auction those off at the beginning of the Hubble dinner. And it's kind of fun to watch people bid against each other, one presidential family against another.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite memories of that is Mary Eisenhower purchasing a pie, paying quite a bit of money from it, and then sitting at her table, and I was watching her eat cherry pie with Sergei Khrushchev. And of course, Khrushchev and Eisenhower had quite a contentious relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
And here they are eating cherry pie in Marshfield, Missouri.
And Sergey was his son.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that happened at our Assembly of God, which is crazy, you know?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, because everybody wonders, so expenses. You do have. Obviously, putting an event like this, there's a lot of expense.
Absolutely.
But one of the questions that I've been asked before is, well, how in the world can you get, Bobby Ewing from Dallas in here? And it's got to cost money.
Sure.
Or whoever. How does that work?
Well, it's different by situation and guest. The first years of the festival, to try to convince somebody to come to Marshfield, Missouri, when they'd
Probably
never heard
kinda
of
hard,
it.
wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we as a committee, we didn't have anything to start with.
Right.
So a lot of us put in our own personal resources, and we got sponsors, and we paid airfare and lodging and all those things to bring people here. But once they came here, and that's usually the key, usually when somebody comes for the first time, there's an investment in that, getting them to come. And sometimes it might be an airfare, or it might be a guarantee or a speaking fee on some of them. It's different on each guest.
Right.
But usually once they come, they want to come back. And used to, I had to beg people to come, and now sometimes they call me and will say, my friend recommended this, or my cousin recommended this, and so it's different. But we provide lodging for everybody.
You do.
That's across the board.
Yeah.
We provide drivers for most everybody, unless they rent their own car, and a lot of them do. And because we are full in Marshfield at the Holiday Inn, we have to outsource guests. We send them to Springfield, Lebanon, Mansfield, Seymour.
You don't have Conroe anymore, do you?
No, and we've lost several of the bed and breakfasts that we once kept people in. We also have host families, which is a really
You still
key
have
part.
some. I know you
we
used
still
to
have
have,
some,
yeah.
And that is a huge part of the festival's success, I feel.
Yeah.
But and sponsors are the lifeline,
Right.
and we've had some grants that have helped us, but it's not cheap to put on the festival. But I think the biggest benefit to us is that they have bought into the festival, and much like that reunion I mentioned, they've made friends here, fellow Cherry Festers, that they want to see every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our local people are amongst that group.
It's a reunion within themselves.
Absolutely, it is, and so they feel like they're being left out if there's not an invitation issued because they want to come. I had some that called this year that weren't even, because we can invite everybody back every time.
Right.
The list has become too
Right.
long.
Did some just come on their own and pay their
I
own
was going to say
airfare?
there were people that came this year that said, "We want to come. Can we have a table at the autograph show?
Yeah.
And we're going to come on our own."
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's I think a great compliment.
So you work through an agency, right? You have
Not always.
Not always.
My preference is always to deal with the person directly.
Okay.
Because then you don't get all the ins and outs. I have about 3 or 4 booking people
I see.
that I trust that I work with, because that's kind of a dog-eat-dog world sometimes. And I trust him. One of them's a
Just
retired...
watch Jerry Maguire, right?
Right. One of them's a retired Hollywood agent, lives here in Missouri, and he's helped me a lot. One's John Provost's wife.
Oh, yeah.
She's very helpful, and we work very closely together. And another is a gentleman in New Jersey who I work a lot with.
Are they members like John Provost and the Beaver? Some of it from that area, are they members of an association or they're not?
No,
necessarily?
they're just people work independently.
I see.
And you learn a lot as you work through with some of those folks.
Yeah.
But those in particular, I have a great relationship with. And usually, if there's somebody that I would have on my wish list, I can say, "Hey, can you help me reach out to them?" Or
so do they, in general, probably make enough selling their autographs or their books or whatever to make it worth them coming and spending a couple of days?
The only way I can answer that is they must, or they wouldn't come back.
That's what I meant, yeah.
And they talk to each other, and they'll say, so-and-so told me that I'll do well there.
Right.
And so I think that's a great compliment.
Right. And they have to. I mean,
absolutely. And we forget that, people think, oh, they ought to just go to this, and they ought to go to that, but that's how they make their living.
No, they have to.
Yeah,
absolutely. Any if you went to Comic-Con or a card show or any kind of
any of those
gun
things,
show, trade show, whatever,
you would pay to get in. And so and I've had some of them say to me, "I think you should charge an admittance fee to get in here." And I said, "No, I want people to be able to come and see you."
Right.
And that's a different concept for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's probably another reason that it's successful. And I will tell you this: they'll be lined up Friday morning and Saturday morning out here on the sidewalk, and it'll wind down and turn down, go toward the donut shop. Yeah. It always has been for several years.
Your cousin Linda from the Historical Society told me she had a phone call from a lady from out of state the other day that is flying in, and she wanted to get in line at 5 o'clock in the morning on Friday to get her spot in line. Linda said, "You don't have to get out here that early."
But there's probably some new stars that she didn't get last year, and she wants their picture or something for a collection or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or a book or something.
And sometimes it's personal. Maybe it's not they even want an autograph. They just want to talk to somebody. I heard somebody have a conversation with Richard Thomas one time at an event where he said he'd been in Vietnam, and at night when they would go to bed, how they would sound off to know who was still surviving in his group was to say, "Good night, John Boy, good night, Mary Ellen." And it was a personal story he just wanted to deliver to him. Yeah. And I know they hear personal things all the time. Like I grew up, but sometimes it's not anything to do with that. They just need to talk to the person.
That's right. Friday's also your Walk of Fame this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who's going to receive those stars?
So this year we actually have 7 stars, and usually it's always 6, but we had an issue where we added one for a particular reason. But Sean Dietrich, as I mentioned, from Sean of the South, is coming, and we're so excited about him. Then we have Don Warden, and Don Warden was part of the Porter Wagner trio on the Ozark Jubilee. It was Porter Wagner and Don Warden and Speedy Hallworth that sang together. They recorded Satisfied Mind and several different things like that. Then he went on to be Dolly Parton's manager, a road manager, and worked with her until he died for a long time. And he's real noted as a musician as well. Yeah. Then we have, Tabby West. Tabby West was an entertainer on the Ozark Jubilee, was a very famous country singer in her heyday. Her former husband is coming to accept her star. Then Emmett Kelly, of course, was the famous clown from Houston, Missouri.
Right.
And in fact, this particular weekend, they have Emmett Kelly Day in Houston, Missouri. But his daughter's coming to accept his star, which is kind of an exciting thing. Let's see.
Preacher Rowe.
Preacher Rowe, yeah, of course, baseball fame from West Plains.
Right.
His son is coming to accept his star, which will be an awful nice addition to the Walk of Fame. Brent Huff, who played Smitty on The Rookie, still, is very famous for that. Is from Springfield, and he was at the festival last year. This is kind of funny. Not only do we see people wanting to come and participate, but sometimes they just come as spectators. He was here. He's good friends with Mark Edelman, that used to be the sports reporter for the Marshfield Mail. They went to school together, and Mark introduced me to him, and I still wasn't putting together the connection. And then I started seeing people taking pictures with him.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just here as a fan, which was kind of cool.
And then Ella Kate.
Yeah, Ella Kate Ewing. So the Ozark Lyric Opera just, actually they have a production coming out about her life. She was a giantess from Missouri that made the rounds in that time period of, I guess, with the circus and things. And she's being portrayed in the Living History Museum from someone from her hometown. And so, she's receiving one this year as a part of that package.
Who's receiving it for her?
Somebody from the museum in her hometown is coming. So it'll really be kind of a unique class of...
Yeah. So what's the qualifications to be a member? I mean, what about Missouri makes them qualify?
Well, they have to have either lived here, gone to school here, been born here, had a connection to Missouri in some capacity. And then when they receive a star, we always put a classification on it. So whether it's baseball, football, whatever, golfer, whatever. And then we usually just do 6 a year.
Yeah.
They always are put in the sidewalk the year after they're received so that they can have their picture taken with their star. In fact, today, the Ashcrofts received a star several years ago, and they couldn't be here for the ceremony. So we've held that star until they could accept it, and we took a picture of them with it today.
Yeah.
That's the rule. If you're alive, you have to accept the star yourself, and if you're deceased, somebody that's related to you or who knows you, worked with you or something, has to accept it, so that it's not just.
And you're not going to put it in the sidewalk till they accept it.
Well, they did today.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Because it wasn't in there yet, even though you did.
That's right. It's been several years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice that they were actually. We took it before the ceremony today.
So back on that year, did you leave a spot for them, or they just be added?
They'll be added.
Okay.
In there, but it's amazing how many people. Sometimes I'm at the Historical Society for a meeting or research or something, and people will be out there taking pictures, and they'll come in and ask questions. Carmelita T. Scottard and her sister Connie Perryman have made a book that the Historical Society has one, and the Chamber has one, and then the festival has one, and they keep it updated every time we add one.
Yeah.
Has a picture of them accepting it, what their story is, what their connection to Missouri. People come in and look at those. They want to know about it.
You bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we first started the Walk of Fame, Paula Greer said to me, "Do you think we really need to do that downtown?" I said, "I do." And she said, And I thought she was really going to be strongly against it. She came to me later and she said, "What can I do to make this happen?" And so every year she would be out there inspecting when they installed those stars. She wanted to make sure they were done right. And she said, "I can't wait till they go clear around the square." And I think of her every time they're installed, which is kind of exciting when they go in each year. Yeah.
Okay. Lots of other things going on. You got a luncheon, the Wilsons Creek Luncheon, Assembly of God.
Yeah, let me mention this.
Yeah.
So Rosalind Carter had a very close relationship with St. Genevieve School in California. And their principal, Dan Horn, had developed a relationship with her when he was a pretty young man. They were writing letters and things. And so their school went to Plains, Georgia, and they made a documentary about Mrs. Carter, and the Carters went to the school, and there was quite a relationship back and forth going for a long time. And so I've gotten to know the choir, their Valiant Voices choir, through going to Plains all the time, which, of course, Plains has their Peanut Festival as a sister festival to our Cherry Blossom Festival. They send people here, we send people there. So they're coming this year just to perform at the Cherry Blossom Festival, and they're an award-winning choir. They're going to have a spot on the schedule on Friday, and then they're singing as part of the First Lady's Day ceremony and on Saturday. And that's a big deal because they're going to be named the official choir of First Lady's Day. And I think that's going to be really nice. They're going to sing at my church on Sunday morning. They're very talented. They're international award winners, actually. And they're coming here on their own dime. to perform, and it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And
Unique. Very unique.
Yeah, and you're right. Wilson's Creek, they've hosted the Wilson's Creek Luncheon for many years. It benefits their foundation. I'm honored to serve on the foundation board, and I love to see that takes place. This year, as I mentioned, Diana Hudspeth and her connection to the Civil War, that panel is going to feature those whose grandfathers fought in the Civil War. And so that'll really be an interesting perspective. And they're going to do a little game show thing to start it off, which will really be cool.
Right.
And then on Friday, some of your family, this is a feature for them. Robert and Edith Garst, who of course were from Marshfield,
Right.
were always supportive of the festival. As long as they were alive, were financially supportive of the festival. And they always wanted a history convocation to be held. It used to be held at the school as long as they were alive. And, we had great speakers during those years, like Jenna Bush and her sister Barbara.
Right. Laura Bush came one time.
Yes, that's right. But this specifically for the history convocation.
I see.
And so I felt like even once they were gone, we should honor how they poured into the festival for so many years. So we still host the history convocation in their honor. This year it has to do with Andrew Greer, who has made a collection of stories, or I shouldn't say stories, lessons from President Carter's teachings of his Sunday school.
Right.
And so some of his family are going to be part of that, and it'll really be an interesting.
Andrew's, is he from down there?
He is,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the Garsts, of course, were responsible for helping get Laura Bush here, right?
Absolutely.
Because they were actually neighbors or friends or went to Sunday school together.
They went to Sunday school with
in Midland, Texas.
Laura Bush's mother
Yeah.
and Jenna in Midland.
Right.
And then, of course, Bobby Garst, Robert and Edith's son, was George W. Bush's age. And so they had a very close relationship. And so, yes, they were very instrumental in helping bring Mrs. Bush here.
Let's see, what else do we have?
I want to mention this just because I take personal pride in this.
Yeah.
2:30 on Friday, the Congressional Gold Medal is being presented in honor of my great-grandmother, my grandmother's mother, who was a Rosie the Riveter during World War II. And Congress approved several years ago the Congressional Gold Medal for the Riveters. And they have special ceremonies for those who have passed away. And so Congressman Alford was originally supposed to come. He's had to cancel his appearance, but he's sending a video, and somebody from his office is coming. But our family's coming from all over the country to be here for it. My grandmother's going to accept it. My great-grandmother was a riveter during World War II in Detroit, Michigan, and we're very excited about that.
That's at 2:30 Friday.
Yes, and that
Where's
will be
that at?
the Assembly of God.
Yeah.
And then that will be immediately followed by the Ella Dickey Literacy Awards, which have been given in honor of Miss Dickey, Marshfield's first librarian, for many years, and it honors those who have contributed to the pages of history with their writings. So that class of honorees come from all over the country. One of the names on there is Mac Teasley. Mac is from Abilene, Kansas. He worked at the Eisenhower Presidential Library for years. He's written a new book about President Eisenhower. He's one of the honorees. Eisenhower's granddaughter, Mary Jean's going to interview him exclusively about that. So that's really kind of interesting. And the Blue Jay Singers have traditionally sung at that ceremony for many years because Miss Dickey loved children. So we include that in there.
So really, most of the panels are all at the Assembly of God.
Yep.
That's kind of your home base.
It is.
It and the community center, but I mean, as far as the panels and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
programs,
it's been a great home to us over the years.
Yeah.
The Cooking with the First Lady's Man, Rosalind Carter's sister, and her nieces are working with Andrew Oak, and they're doing some recipes that Mrs. Carter fixed on a regular basis. Last year they fixed the cheese ring and pimento cheese, and I think maybe they're following some of those same things. Our family has a special story. I have to tell you this about pimento cheese and Rosalind Carter. I may have told you this before. When
I like pimento cheese, though.
Oh, I do too. But when Reagan my little girl was little, we'd gone down to the Carters, and President Carter was teaching Sunday school, and the Carters were behind us in church. And when service was over with, Mrs. Carter said, "Are you driving straight home to Marshfield today?" And I said, "Yes," which is, 13, 14-hour drive.
Right.
And she said, "I'm worried about Reagan eating well as you drive home." I said, "Well, we'll stop at a drive-thru or something." And she said, "No, you won't. I got up this morning and I made pimento cheese sandwiches for you, and they're in a Tupperware."
Rosalind did?
Yeah, they're in a Tupperware container in the kitchen in the fellowship hall, and you'll take those with you. I said, "Do you want your Tupperware container back?" She said, "Yeah, next time you come back, if you think of it, if you'd bring that." And so Reagan was little. She didn't know what pimento cheese was, and so she wasn't real excited about it. And I said, "You're going to eat those. Mrs. Carter made those. You're going to eat them." So that's kind of our pimento cheese.
Did you ever take the Tupperware back?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I sure did. I sure did. Yep.
All right, and then of course the Edmund P.
Dinner.
Hubble Medal
Yes.
of Initiative, the dinner, and then you have some presentees this year. Talk about
so the Hubble Medal was started when NASA originally started having discussions about discontinuing the Hubble telescope. And at the time, the Chamber was worried about what will happen to our claim to fame.
Yeah.
So we began to discuss, well, maybe if we give something in Hubble's name each year that's a national award, maybe that'll be another way to keep his name out there. So that all started around the time that the cherry blossoms were planted in town. So my suggestion was, well, we're beautifying Marshfield. Let's try to have the first recipient as Lady Bird Johnson, since she was big on beautification. And so we went to the Johnson Library and presented Mrs. Johnson with the first medal. And then it kind of started from that, as we would present it during the Cherry Blossom Festival as kind of a premier award. So we've gone, the Carters received it. We went to College Station, Texas, and presented it to George and Barbara Bush. Because we voted at that time that all the living presidents and first ladies would be recipients. There have been outstanding actresses, and Martin Luther King's families accepted it. We presented it to Billy Graham. It's been a big.
Did you get
big
to present
award?
Billy Graham?
Yes, it's a big stuff.
North Carolina.
Yeah. And then George Beverly Shea, of course, who was part of the Billy Graham Crusades. Sarah and I and my mother went to the dedication of the Billy Graham Library and met with him the day before and presented it to him. But this year we have a great class of honorees. Linda Pearl is receiving it this year. Patrick Duffy is presenting it to her.
Did he get it last year?
He did.
Yeah.
Richard Thomas presented it to him, who was a past recipient himself. Mary Badham, who was Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, is receiving it this year.
Clint Howard, Ronnie Howard's brother.
Yes, and of course, a lot of people will remember him from the Andy Griffith Show as well. I think he played Leon.
Yeah.
We've got
Cherie
Wilson from Walker. Also, she was on Dallas.
Right.
We have some great honorees, and because each one of those people have done things with their celebrity, as far as different charities they've endorsed and things they've been involved with, that are really being recognized beyond just their, I'm a celebrity.
Actress. Right.
Yeah.
Where do those, the pictures? Where do you have those just stored? Do you have them mounted somewhere on display?
What do you mean?
Like these honorees working, like the Walk of Fame's in the concrete out there.
So they receive a medal,
right?
A Hubble medal.
Do you have a picture of presenting it to them?
We do.
That you have displayed anywhere?
We don't have them displayed anywhere, but you could go to our website or to our Facebook page and see those. But we probably should do that at some point.
Frame them and have them on the wall.
A big deal about this, somebody receiving that this year, is the President General of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And that's a big deal that she's coming to Marshfield. It's the first time the President General has visited Marshfield. Not only is the current President General attending, but the immediate past is attending. And they're here for First Ladies Day because they serve on the commission. But that's a big deal because Marshfield just started its DAR chapter.
Right.
And they're hosting a luncheon on Saturday, and it's the first time that it's a big deal that the President General is coming for that luncheon and for First Ladies Day and to honor this new chapter, which is the First Ladies chapter. It's really a big deal that she's coming.
Where's the DAR headquarters?
Washington, D.C. Yeah. And so to think she's not just... a state president. She's the national president.
Right.
It's really exciting.
Yeah. All right, so that's all Friday stuff, and then we come into Saturday and talk about it.
So Saturday's National First Ladies Day, and that may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but Marshfield is the birthplace of First Ladies Day. It was inaugurated at the Cherry Blossom Festival several years ago, and that is a national initiative to have the last Saturday in April designated as National First Ladies Day, not as a paid work holiday, but as a day to encourage people to roll up their sleeves and go out in their community and make a difference, just as the First Ladies have done. It was chosen because Martha Washington became First Lady near that date. And so the National Commission is made up of presidential descendants and historians and the President General of the DAR, and we meet on a monthly basis. They're from all over the country. We meet by Zoom, and they have their national ceremony during the festival, and that's a big deal. They're signing a memorandum of understanding this year with Georgia Southwestern University, and Georgia Southwestern is where Rosalind Carter graduated from college. Their president's coming from Americus, Georgia, to sign this agreement as part of the First Lady's Day ceremony. It's really going to be a big deal.
Big deal.
And I think we in Marshfield don't all really understand the significance of
Right.
First Lady's Day yet, but
Right.
it is a big deal.
Yeah. So you have also Saturday at 9 o'clock, you have the 9 to 2, the car show around the square,
Yes.
and you have 9 to 4, the vendor palooza.
And this is the first year we've had an auto show on the square. It's in honor of Route 66, the Centennial. Jim and Nina Schaefer are handling that this year. They're really excited. In fact, they're hopeful that they're going to fill the whole outside of the square.
Right.
And then the inside, of course, will be all the booths. So that's really exciting this year. The Chamber's hosting the inaugural Cookie Walk as a way to bring people downtown, and many of the downtown businesses are participating in that. The Historical Society is hosting a History Homes Tour this year, which is featuring historic homes and businesses that you can go in. In fact, the Dickey House is one of the stops on the tour. It's really going to be interesting to be able to talk about history, not just come in because the house is decorated, but come in because you want to learn about the history of Marshfield.
We could do that sometime
Yes,
with this building too.
absolutely.
So the cookie, $15, and then you go around and get cookies at all the.
And I think there's about 15 stops on it, so you're really paying like $1 a cookie.
Yeah.
You go to the chamber office, you get a box, and you get a map of where all you go, and it brings people into your business, and the businesses are just providing cookies.
I bet they're good cookies.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Ray Toller is doing a play. I wrote a play about Francis Carpenter, who painted the Emancipation Proclamation painting. My friend Larry Cook has written a book about him, and I figured most people wouldn't know who Francis Carpenter was, and so I said, let me write a play that you can take to help promote your book wherever you go. So Ray Toller played one of the uncles in Home Alone, and he's from Missouri, received a star on the Walk of Fame last year. So he's unveiling this one-man play at the festival at 9 o'clock that morning.
Cool.
Yeah. Then we have the pet parade. My son's in charge of that, and the dog show, which he gets so excited about.
That's his deal. Yeah.
And now, for local people that grew up here, the 10:30 time slot, Children's Hour, Aunt Norma, Norman Champion, has hosted Children's Hour at the library now for maybe 5-6 years. The art class at the high school several years ago built a replica of the castle.
Yeah.
And they bring that out, and Aunt Norma hosts a guest who reads a children's book, and they do an activity. And most of the people that come are people who grew up watching Children's Hour that bring their grandkids. They're excited
Is Aunt
for them.
Norma still?
Yeah, she's doing
pretty
really
good
good.
shape? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's kind of an exciting
Yeah.
thing. We have the alumni luncheon that day at the high school. It's at the same hour of the DAR luncheon for those who are not alumni. It's funny to me how many festival guests come to the alumni luncheon just to eat Lola Day Fern's
Cashew
Lola
chicken.
Fern Day's cashew chicken. Yeah, because it's so famous, and they'll get it and they'll leave. Or some of them might stay, but they really have gotten to enjoy that cashew chicken.
Yeah.
Let's see. James Owen, who was judge here, has
yes.
written a book, and he's going to be having a book signing from 2 to 4 on Saturday at the
Right.
Webster County Library. James is Elkland native, of course.
I might add, too, that James is going to be on Marshfield School Times.
Good.
We're planning on 1 o'clock that day, so he'll come here and do the. We'll go to the alumni luncheon, and he'll do the podcast, and then get right over to the library for his book signing. So it should be fun. The book is The Wicked Among Us, and it's about an attorney, a murder involving an attorney, a judge maybe, or an
James's
attorney.
office, I think, law office helped handle the case. And
I see.
It's really an interesting story. And I think it's great that we have the alumni luncheon during the festival. General Tom Jaco said to me many years ago, back when we had the alumni banquet, he'd say, it doesn't make sense for us all just to come home for a day anymore.
Right.
Our mothers are gone. It was always Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, it had pretty well phased out.
It had phased out, and I think it's such a great thing that you have Reunion Fest because the younger alumni really enjoy that gathering.
And it's at the 4th of July holiday weekend
is.
when people come home naturally anyways.
Yes, and so a lot of the older alumni who miss the days of the banquet, the luncheon is a good time for them.
Yeah, it works out well.
It really does. Let's see. We have Tweed Roosevelt's going to be interviewed by Roy Howard Beck on Saturday afternoon, because at the 4th of July this year, the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library is being opened in the Dakotas.
Oh, really?
And that's a big deal. And so he's speaking about that, and Roy Howard's excited to get to interview him. Then both President Generals of the DAR are moderating the descendants of the Founding Fathers. Then the Presidential Family Forum has been a traditional spot on the festival schedule since the founding.
Kind of the last panel, right?
Yep, it's where all the descendants are on the stage. They love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Larry Cook is going to be moderating that. And then we have the state dinner. And it's really exciting this year. Michael Reagan was supposed to be our state dinner guest originally. And you would think, oh, that's Ronald Reagan's son. He was going to speak about Ronald Reagan. And he probably would have said something about him. But he was coming to talk about Jane Wyman, his mother.
Really?
Yeah, and he really felt passionate about that. He said, history will remember my father, but I'm afraid it could easily forget my mother.
Sure.
And, of course, Jane Wyman was from St. Joseph.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he really wanted to come and talk about her in her home state.
Right.
So now that Michael passed away, his daughter Ashley and his wife, his widow, are coming to represent him.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're doing the same thing. And his daughter Ashley is a teacher. I think she'll make a great festival guest. And while we're talking about presidential grandchildren,
I was going to say we have one more thing too.
This is not on the schedule, but 10:30 Saturday morning, Pierce Bush, President Bush's, George H.W. Bush's grandson, is going to be dedicating a marker on the courthouse lawn behind the gazebo of where his grandfather spoke.
Right.
And it'll be really interesting to see the grandchildren of Bush and Reagan together.
She's going to be there too.
Yeah, here in our town.
Yeah, and that is going to be a neat thing. I think that's something that I'm not sure why we hadn't done it already.
Yeah.
Bush was here in 1991, which has now been, believe it or not, 35 years.
Yeah, wow.
Is that right, or 25?
It's been
That's
a long
35.
time. Yeah,
isn't
it has to. Yeah,
35 years ago when President Bush came.
Yeah.
And so this will just be a little marker that
has a picture of him.
Yeah, and the county commission was great to work with on that, and you know, the chamber and then your group mainly. But
And Womack Monument has donated it.
that's important to know that it was donated by Womack family, and but it'll always be there to designate. You know, they do that in other locations. We've seen those plaques where JFK stood here and gave a speech, and President Truman stood here and gave a speech or whatever. So it's kind of a standard thing to do, but we hadn't done it yet. So I'm glad we're getting it done here on the 250th year of our nation's
And your
birth.
Uncle Donald, who of course was presiding commissioner at the time, is planning to be there for it.
Good.
As is Wayne Plunkett, who was a mayor of Marshfield at the time. So it'll be really nice. In fact, I mentioned it today, hoping that maybe General Ashcroft would think about coming because he was governor.
He was the governor, and he was in those pictures as well.
It'll be really interesting to see. And it'll just mainly be a dedication photograph opportunity. Right. But it'll be something we can be proud of for a long time. Sure. So a full weekend.
Yeah, I'd say that's quite a bit. We've burned our hour. We're at 8:05. So no, that's exact. Come out just right. Yeah. And then the last event of the week would be your Sunday piano concert.
Yes, and first of all, I want to say Sunday morning, many of the churches host special guests from the festival, like the Show Me Cowboy Church is hosting Jim Bob from the Waltons. We're hosting Sherry J. Wilson.
Are they actually going to give the message?
Yeah, they speak on that Sunday morning for years now. Guests have gone into the churches and been our speakers on that morning, which is great. And then we have the First Lady's piano concert. This year it's at the Nazarene Church. It's 12 pianists playing simultaneously. Kathy Kunis will direct it. It's in honor of Missouri's First Ladies. It was Betty Hearns whose idea it was to start it. Right. Then that evening, the concluding event, it's the Helen Taft Band Concert, and the College of the Ozarks Band comes and performs for free at the high school gym. The Methodist men started that tradition, and they will host the band after the performance for pizza, which has been a tradition. And so it's kind of a nice way to conclude the weekend after a hectic time, but kind of fun.
Well, it's a big week.
It is.
Man, I'm more out just listening to the agenda.
We had our family meeting before I came over here. We're all just looking at each other like, what are we getting into? Yeah.
Where do you see the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival 21 years from now?
So I don't know if I've talked to you much about this, but for years we had the Cherry Blossom Auxiliary, which was the volunteer arm of the festival, because not everybody can serve on the committee. Right. And then we had the committee. So last year, for the 20th anniversary, those two groups combined and became one. And then our family started the Cherry Blossom Foundation. And then we had a representative from each one of those groups, in addition to our family and Mary Jean Eisenhower, as the governing body of the festival. Our goal was that by year 25, that we want to be able to hire a full-time festival director, because the festival is a full-time job.
Oh, no question about that.
And, everybody that's involved is doing this on the side, and, you're getting calls all year, you're planning things all year. So to be able to hire somebody by year 25 is the goal. Lyndall's done all the legal work for us to get set up as the foundation, and so we're moving in that direction. The other thing we're unveiling this year is we're starting the Helen Taft Society. Mrs. Taft was the first lady that planted the cherry blossom trees in D.C., and that will be so that if you want to include the festival in your estate to give long-term, that you can do that and be part of that, and we will host something special for those society members each year at the festival as a way to plug into the festival long-term.
Yeah.
And because my goal is, long after I'm gone, that the festival would continue and be something that could be beneficial to Marshfield.
Right. Is the foundation, will the funds be through like the Greater Area Ozark Foundation or something like that?
It'll be its own foundation.
It'll be its own foundation.
It's its own foundation.
Okay.
And so it will be a great opportunity for people to be able to give
Right.
through that mechanism. We've always been connected to the Community Foundation of the Ozarks, but this will be, formulating on our own, which is an exciting new chapter for us.
Absolutely.
But I'm passionate about it, but I can't expect that the next person is going to pour into what I've poured into it.
Right.
So whoever that is.
Right.
And I think that's the best way to keep the festival alive long term without burning somebody out.
Mm-hmm. Right. You have a lot of memorabilia from over the years.
Oh, absolutely. I do.
You ever going to have a place to present
I
those
hope
to
so,
people?
because it doesn't need to just be in a box
Right.
collecting dust.
Because it needs to be so we
Yeah.
can keep the memories alive, right?
And the Historical Society has featured at different times, different years, pieces of that collection, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like I have a pair of ruby slippers that were given to us by the Munchkin that I mentioned from The Wizard of Oz. Those just are in a box.
Did I read where the last Munchkin passed?
I believe that could be right. He was one of the. No, was it Lollipop? I forget which one
Was it Mickey Carroll?
Mickey Carroll, yeah, Mickey Carroll was a character.
Yeah.
And he was at several of the Cherry Blossom festivals before he passed away. He was at our wedding, and we were taking communion, and I could hear over my shoulder, "Why did they put all the tall people in front of me?" And he's back there just jumping up and down. He was so much fun.
Yeah.
But things that you're exactly right, that I'd love people to be able to see, because they're interesting pieces of history.
Well, it would be another draw for people to stop in Marshfield.
The goal has always been that there would be someday a place, in my mind, that you would be able to come and we could feature a gift shop with all the festival authors throughout the year. Lots of different aspects that we could do. We could feature programs through the year beyond just festival time. But it hasn't happened yet. I think you were there when we unveiled the virtual museum.
Right.
And your son-in-law, Cale, designed. And that, in my mind, was another step towards that direction.
Right, yeah.
But I have an extensive presidential collection. But outside of that, there's now an extensive festival archives. And I thought, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be in one person's collection.
Right.
I thought about giving it to one of the universities. MSU has a great Ozarks collection, and it's its own collection. But I'd love for it to stay here.
Stay here where people can
because it's our story.
Yeah. Well, maybe it can be someday.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's all discussions for another day. But it's something that I think about because I'm running out of space.
Well, you keep bringing new vendors in, autograph vendors in every year. So
happens when you're a history hoarder.
You don't need 25 Thelma Lou pictures, but you need one of each, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I bet you miss her though.
I do. She was
kind of your friend.
It was Thelma Lou that made me, or Betty, that made me realize that the festival was going to be something bigger than just a history conference.
Yeah.
I saw people get excited about her that were not excited about seeing presidential relatives.
Right.
So I thought, if we can bring people here to see their favorite stars.
The pop culture element is what allowed this thing to grow.
Absolutely.
Because it reconnected us with those childhood memories that were so good. Today, if I wake up at night and I can't go right back to sleep, all I got to do is flip it on Mayberry, or flip it on Wagon Train, or flip it on one of those shows that's on, what is that, the Great Faith Network or whatever it is now. Because, you know, you're not worrying about what's happening in Middle East, or it's just, it takes you back to a wholesome, innocent, easier time, and you learn a lesson. You know, you're reminded of a lesson.
And they would come and see that and plug into that section of the festival, and then they would stay for the other part. And they would say, I never liked history, but that was interesting.
Right.
And I remember one of Betty's visits, Matt Blunt was governor. My wife and I took her to Jeff City, the governor's mansion, to see Matt, and then we went and she spoke to the state senate. And in the parking garage, before we went up to the Senate, these senators were coming up and just going crazy about she was there. And I thought, this is smart. This is, as a promoter, this is exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And I knew then, and Betty said, let me help you reach out to people that you need to bring back. And so she was a huge part of the puzzle.
And some of these people weren't on residual revenue streams after their shows. They were children, their parent, whatever. They didn't have agencies and so forth, and so they're not.
And Betty almost moved to Marshfield.
Yeah,
she really liked it, and she was from Kansas City originally, so Missouri was home. But it made better sense for her to go to Mount Airy because North Carolina, which was Andy Griffith's hometown, to have a museum. She made appearances there all the time. Yeah. But she loved it here. She came for the 4th of July because she wanted to test Marshfield outside of festival time.
Right. Yeah.
But she loved it here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Nicholas, we're well past our hour.
Yes.
So,
thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We want to try to do this to help promote the week. And it's just fun to catch up and see what folks are coming in this year, the new people. And thank you for what you do for Marshfield, and thank you for sticking with this dream that a young man from
didn't make sense at first.
The editor of the Fordland Times had, and door greeted at Walmart, and you know, seeing this dream to fruition, and nobody can deny the impact that it is having now on our community. No one can. So
well, and I want to say this to close. It always takes somebody to be able to steer the ship, but it takes a lot of people to be part of moving the ship forward, and it really does take an army of people to make this happen.
Somebody's got to clean the tables and put the chairs up.
Absolutely, and all those things. There's so much that goes into behind the scenes.
And I know your wife and daughter and son are.
They all work hard.
Your mother, and
my grandmother, my stepdad, and my in-laws.
Yeah.
I think people are dreading marrying into our family anymore because we already think we got a job for you. You know?
Well, yeah.
That's the way it goes, you know.
Yeah. And you're still running, or basically the director of the Wilder Home in
I'm the executive
Mansfield.
Director of the Wilder Home, and still preaching. And you know,
you go down there 2 days a week, 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's pretty good. Kind of fits in really well though with this.
Absolutely.
Whole thing,
and we do some things with the Wilder Home, which is great. We have Nellie's breakfast.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
luck this
Thanks for
week.
having me. I appreciate
it. Stay rested.
Yeah.
Hydrated.
Right.
We'll see y'all.
Bye.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to tell you. Don't forget, next Saturday, James Owen, 1 o'clock, here, Marshfield School Times. Where am I at?
Right.
James will be talking about his book, and then he'll go over to the library for his book signing.
And that'll be interesting.
Yeah, next Saturday, 2 o'clock, or 1 o'clock here, and then 2 o'clock at the library. Elkland native.
Former judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.